I'm the founder and executive director of the Mahogany Project here in Houston, Texas. Okay. There's a few things that I do want to let you guys know that the Mahogany Project is doing. You can always visit our website at www.mymahoganyproject.org. We put events that's going on in the community. You can find out about some of the projects that we're doing in the community. And most importantly, you can always donate to our cause, right? Speaking of that, we do have a fundraiser currently on Facebook. We are raising funds for a program that we're going to be doing over the summer and this fall. So you can go to our Facebook page and you can find that fundraiser as well. Starting next month, we're going to be working on a project with UT Health called The Body Beautiful, where we're going to be using positive body imagery to maybe break stigma around bodiness, shaming, stigmas, and things like that. And always, we're looking for board members and volunteers. So if there's anybody in the room that's looking to volunteer or interested in being a board member, feel free to talk to me after the show, okay? So I'm going to let the panelists tell you a little bit about themselves, and then I'll give you guys the rules for the panel discussion, okay? Oh, wait, here's my other panelist, Sparky. So we're going to start right here. We're going to work our way down to each panel, so they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and who they are.
My name is DJ. I'm a LGBT openly gay barber. I'm founder of hashtag How Cut the Stigma. It's just a stigma around, the barber community and LGBT community. Like I said, I have my own business, Exclusive Cuts. So pretty much me, LGBT rugby player. I got some of my teammates here that's here to support me. Pretty much just all around guy. Also a man who loves men aside.
My name is Demeric Ross. I am a student at Texas Southern University. Also one of the founding members of CUCHU, which is a queer organization on campus for Black queer students at TSU. I'm also a debater, actor at times.
Aren't you Mr. Debate?
I am Mr. Debate for TSU. Also now.
I am Darian Dyrell, also known as the Sophisticated One. I write, I model, and I am from the South Side of Chicago, and I like to tell my experiences as a non-binary queer individual.
I'm Joelle, sorry for being late. I identify as trans, pronouns she, her. I'm originally from LA. I'm new to the Houston area. I have my own t-shirt business. I work in mainly the fashion industry, but I'm trying to transition into doing more nonprofit and being more into the community, and I'm just excited to be here with you all.
And you're the CAB president for who?
And I'm the CAB president for the Mahogany Project. I didn't know if it was a conflict, I didn't want to say.
Okay, so I'm going to give a few rules really quick. If you need me to go into further details about these rules, please let me know and I'll go into detail, okay? So the first rule is take space, make space. Rule 2 is be fully present and practice active listening. 3 is take away stories, not the name. 2, use I statements because we want to speak to our experience within the community and we don't want to generalize other people's experiences as well, okay? Pronouns matter. In this room, we will address people by they required pronouns. There's nothing about none of us is preferred, it's all required. One diva, one mic, just like it said, one diva, one mic. Elmo, which is enough, let's move on. We won't beat a dead horse. Once we've covered it, we'll move right along. Seek first to understand, then take away what needs to be understood. Okay? Be confident in what it is that you have to say and your experience because it's yours and it is valid and it's welcome. Okay? So those are going to be the rules for the event, and we're going to jump right into the panel. Okay. So my first question to the panel, and anybody feel free to answer this question. Are there things that your blackness or your LGBTness stopped you from learning or embracing?
I like how y'all talk about it and they still thinking.
I think for me, being masculine, and so it's like going into an industry as being a barber. I mean, it's just like, can I break this? And then are they going to accept me? Or am I going into a field that's basically just a career suicide? not a taboo. Yeah, it's like a taboo. So it's just like, you know, you got other barbers, like, you can be talented, but they, you know, there's been times where, for me, I've been in barbershops where I've had customers looking for me, but they was like, oh, you want this gay dude cutting your hair, like, and you know, it's not a point of just trying to hide it, but it's like, you know, this is my business and this is my personal life, like, that shouldn't clash at any given moment. So I think for me, that's like, for me, I think, you know, being an LGBT male in my career, that was like a struggle to where I felt like I wanted to succeed.
Okay. So how did you deal with it? Or is this something you're still working on?
I mean, I deal with it. I look at it like this. I'm not the only one that's out there. I might be, and I'm probably not the only one who, you know, walk their truth. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, hey, we're gonna have to make room. I'm here. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I can't go nowhere. I can't disappear. You can't blank me away. So, we're gonna work like we're gonna work as a team, or, you know, I'm gonna push on, because at the end of the day, I still gotta do for me.
My blackness and my queerness made me afraid to just do things to learn things that I was interested in and go after things that I was interested in. I just had a conversation with her about getting a sewing machine when I was in high school. I was really interested in fashion. It was like, okay, I want a sewing machine, I want to learn how to sew, but I got a sewing machine, it was like, I hid it, like in my room and stuff like that. Like, my parents did get it for me for like Christmas, but it wasn't something that I would like take out and like when my family come over, like, oh, I did this or I sewed that, and so I didn't continue to go with it because I was black and I was gay, and so going into that, it was like, that's not something you want to. Fashion industry is gay, and I was running from my gayness, so it wasn't something that I wanted to continue going with. But as I became more comfortable with my gayness and more comfortable with my blackness and who I am and who I want to be, I'm able to do anything I want in the fashion industry now.
You pulled that sewing machine out now, Lydia?
That sewing machine, I don't even know what's that one. I
think I can piggyback off of that experience as well, because so when I was a freshman, when I graduated high school, I went to Howard University first, where I was an acting major, and it was the same type of thing. It was like, I was kind of running away from my queerness, and I felt like acting was very queer, so I was like, I'm not trying to do this, not trying to be out, and not trying to, you know, perform in a way that might reveal something that I wasn't, you know, comfortable with, one, and then ready to share with the world. And so I dropped that, switched that major, went to political science, and, you know, even to this day, you know, I still like, I just wish I would have, you know, and I imagine I'll get back into it eventually, but I wish I would have stuck with it and really learned what it meant to be an actor. And, you know, now after being out and open, I can see now that I wasn't ready to be an actor then. And now I'm you know, because I'm more vulnerable.
But, so, going into like the debate topic, being Mr. Debate and a part of the debate team, do you think you still get that experience in the debate competition?
Oh, yes. And to toot my own horn for a little bit. You know,
okay?
So we do like a bunch of stuff. So we don't just debate, we do interpretation events. So like dramatic interpretation is something that we do. And one of the performances that I'm most proud of is one that went undefeated this season, both internationally winning first place and nationals winning first place. It's from Robert O'Hara's Booty Candy, which is a really interesting play. And where the pastor is responding to members of his church who've written him concerned that some of the choir boys might be gay.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was, so I did the whole piece as a sermon, and it was a really, really fascinating piece. So I do still get that acting piece.
Yeah, and Booty Candy just ended at like the match like a little over like a month or two ago, and it was a really amazing show. I mean, I saw it twice, so it was good both times. Okay. Do you believe your tribe didn't teach you certain things because of the way that you identified, or if your family held certain knowledge from you because of who you were?
I know for me, being black and being trans, immediately there's a wall up. Like, it's almost like there's a wall, invisible and sometimes physical, of communication, and there's just this barrier. So it's almost like, even now currently, like, in terms of actual like family activities and family discussions, I'm not a part of them because it's like, oh, well, my sisters are cisgender and they're straight and they have kids, so that's a family. And then I'm over here. Like my family is actually going on a family trip to Dallas this weekend. I found out today. I think it's things like that that happen, and it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, well, you know, when I've asked, like, well, why am I not included? It's like, oh, well, it's a family thing, like, you know. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess you just told me. So, you know, I feel like it's little things like that. I feel like it's normal to everyone else, but I guess when it comes to, you know, the intersection of my identity, my expression, and my race, it's like those barriers come up and I'm not able to experience those things, even with my family, even actually to this day.
So how do you combat that, or how do you deal with that?
I'm trying to learn to address it on the spot, but I also know that it's a part of a bigger issue and conversation that it's about timing, because I know that maybe it's not the right time to address it right now, and I'm like, okay, well, let me wait and let me try to pick the right time to address it, because it's such a big issue with so many layers that depending on the time that it's addressed, it's not going to be effective. It could actually backfire in my face. So, you know, sometimes I have to pick and choose my battles and know that, you know, what is at a higher level, what am I really trying to accomplish and what do I want to do? And knowing that if I try to fight every battle and try to fight to do every little thing, it's not going to be effective. And I could be essentially moving in quicksand and in mud trying to win every battle and trying to do every little thing. So it's a struggle. It is. It's a struggle.
I believe my tribe, they didn't teach me, they didn't know. My parents didn't know a lot of things. My mother still struggles with her blackness and her being a woman. I think it's all a process. And so they didn't teach me anything that they didn't know. And the things that they did teach me, they had good intent behind it. And so I try to take that good intent now that I'm an adult and I'm able to see that they actually were doing the best that they could, all that they did know. But they didn't teach me anything that they didn't know, that they knew that I should know.
Do you guys feel like it was maybe certain things that was forced upon you that you didn't necessarily feel they were right for you and it didn't work with who you were as a person?
Church. I believe. Let me speak for myself. I don't want the panel to be with me if they don't believe it, but I feel like growing up, I was forced into, my family is devout Southern Baptist Christian. I mean, my grandmother's brother, he was a pastor of a family church in the south side of St. Louis, Missouri, and they, it was ingrained. I had to go. I was forced. And then, when I grew of age and I left, and I went my own way, I was like, this is ridiculous. I'm not doing this. Especially if I can't express myself. Like I can't be, expressive of my identity. I don't think I should have to do this. And even now, my mother still makes comments about us needing to go to church. Whenever it's a problem, it's always, well, if you was in church and, if you did this, but I definitely feel like church is something, in my opinion, is forced. Whether, it's not a let's wait until you develop, it's no, you're going to believe that it's going to solve all of your problems. So,
I would say church and, so I was also a licensed and ordained youth minister. And so when I came out, that was, of course, a big thing. It was like, you can play the piano, but we're good on the preaching. We don't need any more of that. We're good on the speaking, but play the piano, sing, lead worship, but that's as far as your ministry goes, pretty much. So, I feel like that, but even me just getting into preaching, I I was first, you know, just doing, I'm a spoken word artist, so I was doing spoken word at church. And then it was just like, you sound like you could be preaching. And it was, you know, it wasn't like, I went and said, you know, this is what I want to do. It was just like, you know, it was like, next month, you're gonna preach. And it was like, oh, okay, don't know anything about this. And, you know, and I tell the story a lot. When I first got into it, remember I said I was an actor, there's this website called sermoncentral.com. And I was spitting sermons, you know, from other people's actual sermons, because it wasn't something that I was choosing to do. And then beyond that, I would say football. Football was the other thing. I grew to like it a little bit, but it was like everybody else in the family is doing sports, like, and size, I guess. They were like, you know, you're too big, this is a waste of talent. You know.
I couldn't relate to you on that. The only part I liked about it was the dressing in the hundreds.
Amen. Amen. It's about it.
For me, I didn't have like an experience like that, and because reason why my experience is different, because like for me, and the reason why I didn't ever have that experience because my parents were never around. So for me, I grew up at 13 raising two other children, which is my little brother and my little sister, putting them through elementary, junior high, and high school. So for me, when it got to a point of my life, like I'm 16 years old, I'm doing everything I can, you know. My mom been gone 5 years, my dad gone 17. It ain't nothing you like can really just, at this moment, try to tell me. You know what I'm saying? My grandma, my granddaddy, I respect them the most because they did everything they could. But at the end of the day, it wasn't their responsibility. You know, and I wasn't asked to be here, and my little brothers and sisters weren't asked to be here. So me having to find a way, you know, like today, you know, I can sit here today being a proud business owner, but, you know, selling drugs, going in and out of jail, doing what I had to do to feed two other people that I didn't even have to, you know, I don't know nothing about this. Me putting myself through school, still trying to play football and trying to bring home everything. So for me, it's like my tribe left me alone at the beginning. And so I kind of paved my own way. And so I put myself around real life people. Like, when I get in the church, they always tell me to go to church, but in my eyes, I didn't just feel like church was real life people. Because I feel like you only put on for that Sunday. Because once 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock hit, you back to whatever you was doing. And it, you know, seeing you in the streets and then seeing you on Sunday, I'm looking at two different people. So in my eyes, I could never get with the church. The streets always taught me they was always they self no matter where. And I was like, if I'm gonna be somebody, I'm gonna be somebody here, there, I'm gonna be the same person everywhere I go. And it's just address myself and correct myself accordingly. So for me, I looked at it like the streets taught me more than what the church taught me. The streets gave me a better look on a mentality like they was my mom, they was my dad, because at the end of the day, when it came to me asking my aunt, can my brothers and sisters stay here, and they telling me no, the streets made a way for me, my brothers and my sisters to eat, sleep, and go to school, and be together. Because, you know, CPS could have easily took us, you know what I mean? So when it came time for me to come out, when I came out, you know, it wasn't a big deal. It couldn't have been a big deal, because at the end of the day, I looked at it like, it wasn't for y'all to just, I didn't tell y'all for y'all to feel a certain type of way. I didn't tell y'all to accept me or not to accept me. I told y'all because this is what it is. And if you're going to continue to be in my life, and if you want me to accept you in my life from this point moving forward, this is what you're going to have to face. You know, and that's just what that is. You don't have to like it, but you have to respect it. And so that's how I've lived. And like, you know, it's still days where I know my family might be saying like, you know, stuff about it, but they're not going to never have the guts to come to me. Because they understand, like, I'm not the one. You know, I'm not that person. And I have to be that person. I think that's where a lot of my mentality comes from when I move every day in life, because I get in life like, oh, you're 30 years old, but you got a mind like you're 54. That's because I had to grow up. At 13, I was doing things a grown man should. I don't know what I'm doing. So for me, that's why I say my tribe left me a long time ago. And I can't blame my mom, my grandma, my granddad, because they only can do so much.
One thing that was forced upon me was toughness, to be like tough and not cry and stuff like that. But because I've always been like a nice, kind guy, and that's always who I wanted to be. I've always liked church. I like going to church. I love to hear the choir sing. I love to stand up and clap and be a part of the service. And that's always been my experience. I've always wanted to be nice. I always wanted to be kind. But if I went to go tell my mother something like, oh, my brother said this to me, words don't hurt. And it's like, oh, wow, well, he really hurt my feelings. And so it's like now I have to force myself to get back at him. I had to force myself to figure out a way to make him hurt the way that I hurt. And that was forced upon me. I didn't want to be mean to my brother. Like, I love my brothers. That's basically my inspiration. I want to be like my big brothers. You try to be like your big brothers, and when they're mean and malicious towards you, you will look for your parents to be like, don't be like that to your brother and stuff like that. But they was like, oh, he did that to you? Now go do this to him, because that's going to make him hurt. And I'm like, mother! Now I'm looking back at it, you made me mean and to my brother. I don't want to be mean. So.
I think it's very common in the black family. You know, your mom teaches, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. You know, that's very common.
Yeah.
You know, even though
I don't want to hit people.
it's common. It's supposed to
It's very, I like to call police now.
That works too. So one thing I did notice across the board was church. And I do have a question about this because my family was heavily in church. My grandmother was like the secretary of the pastor for the longest. My grandfather was a pastor. All his brothers was deacons. My dad's brother's a deacon. That ain't my stilo. That ain't my thing. But do you believe that churches, especially black churches, are okay with black queer people or black gay people as long as they're making the money? Like, you're good in the church, you're good in the choir, you can lead ministry as long as it's making us $1, but you're not welcome to be in the pulpit preaching, or you're not welcome to sit on the front row with your maid or your partner and things like that. It's all about, do you believe it's about that they only tolerate you as long as it's about $?
I grew up in a church where it wasn't really. I grew up in my church. I was young. My family wasn't. My mother was an usher, and it was me. I went to church, and so it was like we weren't heavily inside of the church, so I didn't know like the drama that went on in the church. So I've never gotten anything like a bad vibe about my gayness inside of the church. I've always been who I am. I haven't always expressed like my sexuality and stuff like that when I was younger, but I've always been like the little gay boy running around the church, but no one ever said anything about that. They let me sing in a choir and be an usher, and it was never, you need to stop doing this, or you need to calm this down and stuff like that. Yeah, I did. I got comments from like my grandmother, but it was a lot of love. She ain't know about her great grandma, so you know she old. So it was a lot of love. But the church has never put anything in me to make me not want to go back. I just understand that I believe in God and I believe in religion, but religion was man-made, and I believe that we have to figure out our own way, our own religion. And if church is a part of your religion, church is a part of your path to God, then you should go. But if church isn't a good path to your way to God, then I think you should stay away as well.
Okay.
I feel like some don't say nothing because of reputation. I mean, you gotta look at it like, you can't preach love all, but still hate this person. So, you know, it would be a fool for me to say, I love all, but outwardly, and just, you know, proudly say, this is not a person that I want to, you know, these are not me. Even though now it's starting to happen. But back in the day, we look at it like the old school, they don't really say much out loud. It's always at the dinner table or on the way home from church, or, you know, like I can, you know, I have cousins that were openly gay before I came, you know, because they, not that I said hid is just who I was, but, you know, I have cousins, you know, just a little more flamboyant than me, and even in times where we at church and they be like, hey, how you doing? You doing all right? How your mama doing? We get in the car and they be like, you know, child, you see this child? You see like, so it's never per se said face to face.
It just sounds like the black family.
Right. It's just that one thing that, you know, it's said. You know it's said. And if you're a person who can pick up vibes, you can see the vibe. You can see things. Like, you may can lead in the choir, but how often you gonna get that lead up? Or, you know, you may can sit on the deacon board, but how often you gonna lead that prayer?
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying? So it's more, we know you're there, but we'd rather for you to be quiet.
Why you there?
Why you there? If you're gonna be here, be quiet. Don't make no sound. That's the thing I see in most churches. It's like, we know you're here. I mean, let's just face to face. I mean, you pull 10 black churches and you pull all 10 music, the minister of music, and probably 8 or 9, 10 are probably gay.
Right.
I mean, let's just.
If not 10.
They ain't got their partner there, so it's just a question mark.
Yeah, but you gotta just catch them on a nice little Sunday fun day after around 4:30. So, but like, at the end of the day, what do you see them doing though? They put on this whole masculinity. Hey, brother, hey, you know, putting on this whole woo, 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 and then come, you know, you catch them about 6, 7 o'clock at breakfast. It's like, this is not the person that I just see. So it's a thing of, we know who you are. You just gotta be quiet about it.
Don't tell people where to go find these people.
I mean, if we in this room, chances are.
Now everybody gonna be walking through Crossgate at
Oh, they don't know.
12:30, 6 o'clock on Sunday, trying to keep their pastor where they keep it.
Hey, that's not my business. If you was doing what you was supposed to do and reading the word, following the word that you preach, you ain't gotta worry about that.
I think I've seen, you know, like I said, being a minister, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Even just recently, I want to say last winter, I was at a church function with the debate team and with some of my friends from the debate team, and the visiting pastor's wife got up and gave this testimony about how she was transformed from being a lesbian woman into being straight, and then, you know, someone else came up and gave another testimony, and then the pastor's message was, so if any of those homosexual spirits are out here today, I'm calling you out. You ain't got no place to be in here. You got to get up because the Lord will reveal it, you know, and it like just very overt, like, and I'm just there, you know, and at the time I had like blue hair, so like I was like, I was just like, okay, I see who you're talking to. You know, eventually I left because I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So, you know, but if, you know, but then I've also been at churches where I've had pastors who've made it intentional not to talk about marriage in this binary sense, or like not to talk about anything in a sort of binary. And so, you know, it's been good and bad. And then there are some churches that, you know, are for it, like you said, but, you know, it's like, yeah, as long as but we're not gonna have a queer ministry.
Right.
You know,
That's what that is. That's point blank.
you know, and so it's always been difficult to kind of navigate. And one thing that I've done, you know, just recently after, you know, coming out, it was something that I had to do with being a minister. It was like I had to find a way. I just couldn't believe that this guy who I preached about for this many years was this person that was being portrayed through these so-called ministers, evangelists. And so, you know, I went and I studied, you know, Black liberation theology, queer liberation theology, queer theology, womanist theology, and really, and got a real understanding, you know, and I even wrote a poem about it, where I talk about, I hope you never learn how to be Jesus, how to hang on a cross for a sin you did not choose, how to be crucified because the world does not accept you. And so when you look at Christianity or you look at God through that lens, who better to understand the plight of being crucified for something that you didn't wake up and want, you know, but the world doesn't accept it. And so now you're persecuted for something that is on somebody else, you know. And so I think when I look at the story of Jesus Christ, I can't help but look at the story of Marsha P., right? I can't help but, you know, draw those similarities.
I understand what you, and I do want to point this out. If you're not familiar with Title IX, take about a good 30 minutes out of your day one day and read Title IX. You may find some very helpful information in Title IX. So my next question is, how do you feel about the stigmatization of the effeminate Black male? Okay.
I mean, if you're looking at it from the neighbors, I don't think they should be judged. I mean, I don't think it should be a stigma. I mean, I feel like you should love who you want to love. You know, at the end of the day, we all human. We cut each other if we don't bleed the same blood. We go in the same ground, we go to the same hospital. So long as it matters to the people that's in that connection, that's in that bond, that's in the relationship, that's all that should matter. I'm not the one to judge. I mean, hey, my whole saying is, if you like it, I love it. So, what am I?
So
I want to touch this hard.
when I was at Howard, I was a student activist. So we did a lot of radical stuff. Like we cut down the American flag, spray painted the middle of the yard, said this is Trump's plantation. Like we did a lot of a lot of radical things. So I really I can sympathize with radical sentiments, and so but to that I would say a lot of that comes from like just blatantly an ignorance, right? I think throughout the history of Black people in America, we've been struggling to figure out what our existence here means, right? And how we get these chains off, how we get free, how we find liberation. And I think out of that, a lot of people, without really understanding theory, without really understanding politics, or really developing a real ideology, are reaching for things to make sense of the mess that is America, in my opinion. And so that kind of comes out of that, this idea that everybody's trying to make the Black man feminine. Here's this effeminate Black man. This is what they're trying to do, because we're trying to grasp how it is that so many of us can be, right? But it can be brutalized, can be killed, can be dehumanized. We're just trying to figure out why, and because there aren't a lot of people that are having real intentional conversations about Black power movement, about like history, about Black freedom struggle. We're left to just assume, and now we just assume, oh well, it's got to be because these gay people on TV, they making Black men feminine, they're making them too soft, and so I think that's part of that, why that stigma is, and of course I wholeheartedly disagree with it.
I think straight Black men are the white people of Black people. They're the white people. I feel like straight Black men will do whatever because of their I guess lack of grasp on the power structure in society. They will try to scapegoat, they will try to throw whatever under the bus instead of dealing with the actual issues within the community. They will, any easy scapegoat they'll use, especially considering that, feminine Black men are usually, as well as, gender nonconforming, trans, we're usually at the forefront of any struggle within the community. We are at the front. We're the one taking the bullets. We're the one creating those seeds, planting those seeds for change, and yet cisgender, and cisgender appearing Black men will say that there's this agenda because they want the power that straight white men have, and I think that they will do anything to get that power. And if that means throwing feminine Black men under the bus, if that means that it's saying that they're creating this, horrific image of Black men instead of challenging society and challenging the actual institutions of power, no, they're going to take some of the most crucified and marginalized people within their community, and they're going to say, no, they're the problem. Not the oppressors. No, we're going to look within and we'll, let's throw them to the fire. And then maybe we'll get that power that we seek, Black Lives Matter. No, it's not all Black Lives Matter. No, it's not these feminine Black men that are getting killed and murdered. No, let's throw them to the fire, and then maybe we will get that power that we want. So, I think that, I don't think it's an agenda. I think that the agenda is with straight Black men within the community that are controlling the things of the community, creating dramatic story of this is what's keeping the black man down. They trying to, you know, make us look a certain way and we not this way, you know. And I think that that's one of the things that's really hurting, especially because feminine black men do so, I mean, they'll still support you. You know, what feminine black man that, you know, doesn't say, oh, I want a straight active man and I want this and I want that, and they be so quick to run after them when they're being thrown to the fire and to the wolves to get that power that these straight black men in this, you know, in the community at large want. So,
To piggyback off there, I think the reason,
What I think is BS. Honestly, I think we have to, black men are taught to be tough. And so we're taught to defend ourselves and stick up for ourselves and fight for ourselves. But one thing when you're fighting for yourself, you have to understand that you don't have to put someone else down to fight for yourself. And so they think that a feminine man is bringing them down. And so they feel the need to defend themselves and say it's a reason because they want us to look soft for it. I don't want to appear strong. I don't have to appear strong. I can be very strong, one of the strongest people that I know. Appearing strong isn't what I'm trying to do. And so being feminine, that has nothing to do with my strength. That don't speak to my strength of how strong I am. Another thing is when I talk about fighting a good fight, you have to be able to fight for people that don't look like you on the strength of like this abortion ban. Trans women have to fight for this abortion ban as well because you can't just police people's body. You can't tell people what they need to do with their body and stuff like that. And so it's like now she has to defend people that don't look like her. And it's like these same people that she's offended, would they defend her as well? It's like she can't say that. Like they're these same people that she's offended, they'll defend her. If you want to speak on that, because I think that's more important. That abortion ban and her not being able, and her having to defend that. Would they those same people defend you?
I think with the abortion ban, I think that's a human justice issue all around, right? I think even though the woman is the one who carries the child, she's the one that pushed the child out, right? It's on our end as people, right, as the human race, to stand against like anything that threatens reproductive justice, because it doesn't matter if you're a male, if you're a woman, if you're non-binary, no matter how you identify, right? Reproductive justice affects all of us as human beings, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's a cause that is not just particular to just women, or particular to women of trans experience, or just them, those set of women particularly.
Yeah.
I think it's an issue for all of us, right? Because even as a cisgender male, right, it still may becomes a time when you may want a child. And reproductive justice laws that are in place can inhibit you from having that child. So it's not a singular person fight, it's a fight that we all should take on and try to combat as a collective.
it's actually to kind of, I guess, speak on it, it's a bigger issue. Because basically what they're doing is, and people aren't paying attention and they're not really looking into it, they're saying that it's a felony to have an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
Who cannot vote? Felons. So if you're policing a woman's body and she gets an abortion, she's a felon, she can't vote. Who's mostly in Alabama? Black women. So if people aren't looking at the higher themes of what they're trying to do is not only are they trying to roll back Roe versus Wade, they're trying to roll back all the voting rights. They're really trying to go back. So, it is a bigger issue. And it's basically, what are they doing? They're not just attacking abortion rights. They're also attacking Backpage, Craigslist. They're attacking how sex workers can work in a safe, environment and make their money because they're not able to get regular jobs. It's a bigger issue. It's all a part of a multi-layer intersectional issue. And and it's not just the woman that get fined. It's the doctors, male or female. They're getting, arrested. They're getting charged more severe punishments than the rapist or whoever is sexually assaulting. They're getting more severe punishments than people that have assault rifles and weapons and are going around shooting people. So it's definitely a bigger issue. It's not just about the abortion. They're really trying to roll back the time. And they're, so when I think about it, I think about it's not just an issue for me as a trans woman. It is a human rights issue because I have to fight not just for my cis sisters, my trans sisters. It's literally, I'm fighting for everybody. Because once they start this ball rolling, trust me, the ball is just going to keep rolling. So.
And then I'm going to say something that we're going to elbow this. And Alabama is held particularly close to my heart, and I don't tell many people this, but my dad, whole side of his family is from Alabama. Birmingham, Mobile, Salem. So the activism that's in me has been instilled in me since birth, right? And so I've always played particularly close to legislation as a whole. I even worked on the Hillary Clinton campaign, but I pay attention to it as a whole because it really does truly affect us as a people, and we have to be on top of it. Black people particularly feel like if the particular issue does not 100% align with them, their ideology and their experience, then it's no need for them to look into that issue or take precedence over it. For example, HERO law. HERO law was pushed in Houston as a bathroom bill, specifically that was for trans people. Well, that was all that needed to be said for people who did not identify as trans, had no correlation or relationship with trans people. That was all that they needed to know to stand against that bill. But not even 2 weeks or a week later after it was repealed, a man went to a midtown bar who was disabled and was not allowed to enter because he was in a wheelchair. But when we think about stuff like that, we don't think about how that can impact the next person. We just hear one minor thing inside of that, and that eliminates the whole situation. All right, just want to get that out. So this is kind of personal to me, happened to me today. I went to the nail shop earlier. By the way, I like your nail colors, Joel. I should have read off mine. But upon entering the nail shop, there were 3 women already present in the nail shop, plus the women that was working there. 2 of them were younger, and there was an older lady inside of the nail shop. To my surprise, the older lady was more welcoming than the younger people who was in the nail shop, right? The older people, they were staring at me like, why are you in here? What are you doing? Because I walk in the nail shop, I have my own polish. I have top coat, bottom coat. I have the color. I know how I want it on. Don't mess up my nails. All of that, right? And they are literally staring me up and down. And I'm sitting at the chair, and I can see the girl every couple of seconds. She's looking at me out of the corner of her eyes, right? So my question to you guys is, have you ever had an experience in a nail shop, in a barber shop, in a salon, where it makes you feel really uncomfortable, or it wasn't welcoming? Because these places in the African American community are like sanctuaries. The barbershop, the salon, they are like sanctuaries. And being queer people, trans people, gender non-conforming people, sometimes we don't feel welcome in those spaces because it's like we sit right on the side of the outside, right? So do you guys have an experience like I experienced today that, maybe you didn't feel comfortable in, and how did you handle that?
Actually, yesterday when I went to get my hair cut, I love wearing blazers, and so I had a blazer on, but under my blazer I had a crop top. And so it was like a little stomach showing, and my biggest decision walking into, I was like, am I going to take my jacket off when I get in this chair, or am I going to just, or am I going to keep it on because I don't want to take my crop top. I don't want my crop top to show in this barbershop. I kept my crop top on only because, why did I keep my crop top on? Because, why did I keep, I did, that's true.
That's enough.
Listen, honestly, and I just wanted to, I kept my jacket on because I wanted to, but, yeah.
There's no explanation for that.
True, but I didn't feel comfortable enough to take my blazer off and show my crop top. Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna encourage you to show your crop top.
Thanks,
I saw a crop top
appreciate it.
last night that I wanted, and I was really thinking about
Go
getting it. We
for
might
it.
see. I think I got 12 more hours to get it. So
12 more hours.
So I think for me, a place that a lot of Black people like to go is Walmart. So I on a day off, Walmart be having low prices. Okay. So I'm like, girl gotta get a deal. When she living alone, taking care of herself, she gotta get that deal. So, when I'm in the streets, I like to pooch. I like to have everything out, and I don't care. I done lived too long to not be looking good. I'm sorry, I'm gonna represent. So, sometimes I'm like, and this actually happened recently. I was on the phone with my best friend, and I was like, Now my ass is hanging out this skirt. Is it safe to go to Walmart? Because it's in the hood. It's on the north side of Houston. And my friend was like, you know, my stomach was out. You know, I'm being real. And I was like, you know, now the young me would have been like, fuck that, we going. But you know, the 33-year-old me is like, now girl, now wait a minute. Now let's rethink this. You know, your stomach out, your ass out, you don't care, you know. So I'm like, I don't know if I should rethink my wardrobe, because I do, you know, not being from Houston, and being a little older, I do think about my safety a little bit more. I still went to Walmart with my ass out, because I was like, you know, if something's gonna happen, it's gonna happen regardless of what I wear. Like, I'm snatched, so they still gonna try to holler. They still gonna do whatever they're gonna do, regardless of what I wear. So I went. It wasn't as uncomfortable as I thought. I mean, people were looking. I did show up a little bit. I was throwing my hair a little bit more, and clicking my nails, and drop it down a little bit. But I was like, I fought a long, hard battle to get here, and I was like, if I change for Walmart, then where else am I going to change? What other places am I going to feel uncomfortable going? And I was like, they're not paying for my groceries. They're not paying for nothing, So it wasn't as bad as I thought. And I was like, I have to I have to stand in my truth, because I know girls that aren't at this point. I have to represent, not just for me, but I have to represent for my homegirl in Kansas City who was like, girl, I can't do it. Like, it's too much. So I think, I might not have the experience of, the barber shops, or, when I go into the nail shop, they know me. They be like, girl, they already know. No, I'm going to come in there and I'm pooching, and you're going to do my nails, and I'm not going to be about that. But, when it comes to, like, other places, like, especially, like, family establishments, like, it definitely does, like, it makes me a little anxious.
Well, I can empathize with you on that, because, I saw mama staring at me at the corner of my eyes. I put my shades on, you sit up a little bit, you start doing a little, you be a little extra, because if you're going to watch, I'm going to give you a show. So I'm going to give you something to watch. We're going to turn into the light.
They be thinking you crazy. You should be like, yeah. For no reason.
Yeah. But that's also a part of, like, making sure you know that I'm comfortable. Yeah. I want you to know that I'm fine with my crop top on. So I'm going to come on and I'm going to sit like that. I'm going to have my little bag or whatever, and I'm going to walk in and I got to show you that I'm good with who I am. And if anyone has something to say, I am willing to have that conversation with you as well.
Right, most definitely. Anybody else?
I mean, I don't know that I really have too many experiences. Like barbershop or anything like that. Just being more masculine, I think, has allowed me the ability to navigate, I guess, that space in a different way than other people might. And so the main things I get into with is, just conversations about blackness. That's where I'm, my fight typically is. But the only thing that is kind of similar, but it wasn't even the people in the nail shop. It was like, so I went to get my eyebrows done in the nail shop, which I need to get them done, so don't look at me. But I had, like, the card that I have is, like, connected to my mom's account. And so as soon as I swipe, I get a call, like, what are you doing at the nail shop? Why are you there? And I was like, I'm getting my eyebrows done. Why are you getting your eyebrows done? What are you doing out there? Like, for what? Like, I'm just like, yeah, I did it, and I'm gonna do it again. Thanks, bye. Especially because it was so random, like, because I was getting my eyebrows done before I even came out here for school. So it was like, where did this come from?
It's just the eyebrow.
Right.
It's just the eyebrow. So this week, Aldine ISD released a statement that said males will now be able to wear makeup to school. And yes. And so I worked with a few teachers, and I'm in a few teacher groups on Facebook, and I saw a lot of the Aldine teachers had an issue with the fact that now males can wear makeup to school. Some people was like, oh, now males can wear makeup to school. What's next? So my question to you guys is, do you feel that it's appropriate for the youth now to be a little bit more more free and have expressions of who they are?
Yes. On the strength of when I had that sewing machine, I should have stayed into it and did it because I liked it and I was passionate about it. If someone want to put on makeup, if they put in makeup at 9th grade, imagine what they're going to be doing in 12th grade. So allow him to get his practice every day when he go to school and put that eyeliner on correctly. So he can be a pro.
My only thing is just don't wear no lip liner. That's it. Don't wear no lip liner. Don't wear no lip liner. We draw the line at lip line. How would you describe your coming of age with your LGBT experience?
Mine was interesting because, like, so I'm very antisocial. I'm not friendly, like, by far. But growing, like, getting, like, I guess just being comfortable with myself, I feel like, you know, I was never like, I can't get into, I don't really want to be in the LGBT community because, like, I just can't do it. Like, I used to be so scared. Like, I had another, like, when I was, like, younger and coming into community, I was like, I can't do this, it's just too much. And then, because I'm like, I was always shy. So I'm like, okay, they just too loud for me. I can't do it. I don't need to be over there. But then it's like, can't go here with these straight people because they do the most, and I'm trying to have a future. So I'm like stuck. I'm like stuck, like in the middle. So it's just like me. It's like more of a zig. It was like more of a zigzag for me. Like I come over here and I'm like, okay, I just, come over here and just, live my life. Okay, now, I live for a little bit. Let me just go. So my life growing up in the area, I think it was just like a roller coaster. I feel like I just learned myself because I never had like a gay father or gay mother. I never was in like gay families. My family, I didn't have to, they abandoned me, but, me being, hustler, the way I wasn't worried about, just really relying on them like that. So, I guess for me, I just got with the flow. I mean, I started moving around. After the military, I just started doing my thing. So I was just like, learn that as I go. Like, even to this day, I'm 30 years old, I'll just be like, and people might say, we've been doing this since we was 6. Well, not me. Because, I had other things going on, so this is new. So, revert this back to me, reteach me this. Like, what is all this going on? So it's still times like I have like that now. So,
I think I'll preface this by saying I'm only 20, so I feel like I got some coming into my identity. I have some ways to grow, but I think mine came a little rough. When I was at Howard, I had a whole, when I came out, so I was Mr. Freshman at Howard, and then the end of that fall semester, I came out on video, and I just released it because, like I said, I was a minister, so I would have to go to every single church and out myself every single day, so I just, I felt like I'm gonna just do this video and I'm gonna assume that the world knows, and so after that, issues with family, staying with friends, and it was just like, it was a time when my mom was sending me prayers every day, praying to get away, like text, and it was like, and I thought I was, I had got to the point where I came out, so I was like, you can't tell me nothing. If I mustered up the courage to do that, then obviously this ain't hurting me. But fast forward to like April of that year, got really drunk one day and was ready to end my whole life, and ended up in the hospital for 4 days for suicidal ideation and extreme depression. And even after all of that, my mom came, she flew all the way to DC, and she had gave me a book about a gay Christian man who was transformed into a straight man. And this was his story. And she gave me that book for Christmas. When I was at the hospital, she came to the hospital, and her first words were, "So do you think you'll read that book now?" Wow. And I was like,
not okay.
That's not okay.
like, here you are, almost like without a son. And that's the response. And it was like at that point that I was like, I just have to make the decision. Like, I'm gonna be this, like, I'm not even worried about you no more. Like, you got it, you know? And at that point, I made the decision to really be like, I'm gonna own who I am, because ain't nobody teach me, right? Like, the parent that I have, she's not gonna facilitate, you know, the growth that I need. And so it was like, you know, I really had to just say, this is who I am, and I surrounded myself with people who were, you know, very confident in who they were. And, you know, and then I began, like, I think I got lost into, like, my activism, and that's what really helped me come into who I am, like, fighting on behalf of people who, you know, may have had it even worse than I did, but, like, really saying, you know, like, there's issues out here, like, as a young person, particularly as a person who is afforded a lot of privileges because of my ability to navigate certain spaces, because I'm more straight passing, if you will, more masculine. And so, you know, I've always felt like getting lost in that, you know, being an alpha man, right? Like, all of that, like, is a part of my coming into age, into who I am, like, how I open up doors for people, how I, you know, start intentional conversations. And I think that is really, like I said, I've got some ways to go, but I think that has been the part that's really, like, helped me come into.
And I want to say I totally agree with where you come from with this. I believe that little boys think the most of their moms, right? No matter if you're straight, gay, what have you not, but your mom is the first woman you come to love, right? And so your mom's thoughts and opinions, they mean the world to you. And when your mom doesn't invalidate that experience, it really takes a toll on you. And I understand where you come from. Me and my mom, literally my mom is my best friend. I come to mom and be like, what's up, dog? And so for the longest, I struggled with, you know, coming out to my mom, because my biggest fear was, if I tell my mom that I'm gay, will my mom still love me? I didn't give a damn about nobody else. My concern was, if I told my mom I was gay, would my mom still love me? And that was a struggle that I had for the longest. And my mom loves me unconditionally, right? And I moved out for the second time a year ago. And my mom came to my house to come to look what it looked like, and she went to use the restroom. She's like, okay, I'm gone. Later that day, I went to the restroom, and my mom had literally left a message on the bathroom mirror, in, like, you know, little dry erase markers. And I left it up there for like 6 months before I erased it. Like, it started fading because of the light. But it made me feel good every morning to walk in the restroom, and I had a message from my mom to let me know how she loves me unconditionally. And if I ever thought for a second that somebody didn't love me, know that she loved me. That meant the world to me. And to be quite honest, I didn't clean the mirror that good, so if you look at the forge, that's a different story.
It's a certain glare,
Yeah, if you look at the right angle, it's still there. Do you believe that the black community just tolerate LGBT people? It's like, yeah, they know that we here, we exist, but it's like, we'll tolerate you guys.
No. I think it's like people like her.
Joelle, my name is Joelle.
She makes them like, hey, you gotta respect it. It's people like me that they already from the door. Oh, you straight? Oh, you female? No, I'm not. I'm an LGBT male. It's what, like, they always say to me. They always tell me, well, you don't look gay. How do gay look? It's like,
I'm giving 20 minutes.
yeah, like, I just want to know, like, if they, somebody can tell me how gay looks, I would empty my bank account. Like, how do gay look? Like, oh, well, you just not the typical gay. What's the typical gay? Well, you not, I mean, it's just so much, you know, it's just so much to where they don't know how to accept it, but like I said, it's like people like me and Joelle that, you know, they're starting to accept it because they starting, it's like a bigger, we start giving them a bigger and broader vision of what gay, you know, gay is. Like, gay is just not me with no booty shorts on and twisting and here. You know, I'm a straight, we can go sit here, we can play football, I'm gonna beat you in Madden, I'm gonna beat you in 2K, I'm gonna do all that and still lay down with a man. That don't make me know, we will still be the same people at the end of the day, and
Like, for me, that's why I think I am the way I am, because I like, for me, I think I'm an advocate for gay men who can show that straight men, like, hey, we move just like you. We can move like you. However, it's like a lot of us, we have our own artistic and, you know, features that what we like, they feel in, and what they feel like that makes them comfortable. But, you know, this ain't me comfortable. Me being who I am, me can go out there and play basketball with you all day. And, you know, when I was going to Barber College, before I, you know, at first when I was dating, they didn't even know I had a boyfriend until one day they just scrolled down my Instagram. Then my post went through the school. Like, if Texas Barber College was the United States, I think I would trump Kim Kardashian in followers. That's how fast my picture went through their school with this guy, and the only thing they kept saying is, "Oh, he's gay." No, they weren't saying he's gay. They was, "Oh, he's bisexual. He's bisexual." Still in their mind, thinking I deal with females because they just see who I am. So for me, I say, you know, they don't accept it, but now they're starting to accept it. Because you gotta think about it now. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. My theory is you get into proven straight because, you know, you go out there, you know, in the third world, you jump out the store, the little boys and try to say something, they got on skinny, they jeans are tight. I'm like, bro, I'm gay, I don't even wear jeans. That tight. Like, you know, you look at these rappers now, like Lil Uzi Vert, he got on halter tops that you can, you know, they're straight. So,
Ain't nothing wrong with a good house.
right, but see, the thing is, these days, like, they don't want us in the community, but they mimic our fashion.
Right.
And they mimic our ways. And they mimic, like now, you go on Facebook now, and if you got straight men, you see some of the straight men, oh, they shady. Where you think they get that from? You know, they use the lingos we use.
Oh, you watch The Shot, everything is the T-man.
Yeah.
The Shot is the show.
Yeah, but you know, everything it's like y'all even picking up on our lingo, so in a way, it's like they're accepting our ways, but they don't want to accept the fact that they're our way. And they got it in original. They want to use it, but they don't want to give us the credit.
Right.
You know, and so they're trying to find their way into trying to masculate that. Like, you got on skinny jeans, you sagging, that don't, I'm gonna laugh at you. Because why do you have on jeans that are 2 times as small as your waist and you're trying to sag in them? What's the point?
Throw the whole outfit away.
Just throw it away. Let it go. Or let somebody who's free and who cares about that, you know, who really embrace themselves, love their skinny legs and their leggings, and they do it. But you think because you sagging in them, you making them straight? No. Now you just look like a foolish gay boy walking down the street. To me. And so that's just how I look at it. And, you know, some of them just can't take that because I beat 100 with them. I'm always, I cut hair in the heart of third ward. Listen. And I don't back down. I tell you like it is, you're not finna come in my shop. I have a lot of LGBT clients. You're not finna come in my shop disrespecting nobody. I don't care who you are. It's the same way you walk in, you can walk out. I promise you that. So, if you're in my area or if you're gonna be around me, you're gonna have to accept it. And I deal with a lot of straight people and they, you know, hey, you don't have to be around me, but you're gonna have to respect me and my community.
Right.
And that's just at the bottom line.
Okay. What you have to say, Ms. Joanne?
I don't think black people accept it at all. I think they tokenize it. I think just like you hear a lot of, I think it's the same thing as white people tokenizing African American culture until it's really time to be African American and they don't know, they're not messing with it. Like you hear, it's a quote that goes around, everybody loves to be a nigga until it's time to be a nigga. Like, I think that they don't accept it, they tokenize it. I think that they tokenize certain people, and I think that they tokenize, oh, you're acceptable. Like, you know, I take a stand, but it's also because of my background and how I grew up. But people have said to me, the same people that tolerate me and accept me have said some nasty transphobic stuff, and I have to come back at them like, okay, just because she might not be snatched and pooching, that doesn't mean that she's not a woman. Mm-hmm. And you know, and that's when you really like, when they tolerate you, that's when you really hear that backhanded transphobia, that homophobia, that, you know, you really see what they're about.
Right,
because they'll always say that, and I'm like, well, do you really accept it, or are you just, you know, rolling with me because I'm not going to have it? Or, you know, you know, you pooched and you cute, we could be cute in a picture together, but I ain't dealing, you know. So I don't think that they accept it at all, especially now, especially with things rolling back, especially with so much going on with the heat within the community. You really see how people are, because I feel like if they truly tolerated it and truly accepted it, they would open their mouths up to more than, oh girl, do my makeup, or oh girl, you need to show me this, or, you know, yes, or, you know, I think that they would do more than that. I definitely don't think that they accept it or at all. I think that they know who to try, and they know who not to try. I think, you know, and I think that they're a little bit more quiet, because they know, because you hear, oh, them gays like to fight. Oh, they, you know, they'll whoop my ass if I say something, so I'm going to be quiet. So, you know, that's fine.
I feel like we're tolerated, we're not really accepted. They only deal with us when it hits home, when it's our son or our daughters, then we have something to say. When it's someone running for president, then it's something we have something to say. You have something to say when it hits home, but other than that, it's just, they're cool and they're all right. I have a friend that actually joked about, you're a bad gay because you don't have your hair and makeup. And it was like, no, it was funny, that is cute, but no. That's homophobic, that's really homophobic, and so we just have to be able to catch things like that. When they say things like that, like, that was homophobic, you know? Like, it's more to gay people than just doing hair, it's more to gay people than fashion and makeup. That's not the only thing we're about.
Right. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Can I say something?
Yes, come on.
So I believe that the acceptance in the black community, like in reference to what he said, the acceptance in the black community really will not be official until they start accepting their own children. Because I have visited a lot of the homeless shelters, and I deal with a lot of the homeless LGBTQIA youth, and it's still an ongoing problem. Like, a lot of our LGBTQ youth are on the streets, are facing homelessness. They don't have resources because the black family exiles you, right?
Right.
And then the bad part about it is that most black families, now you have some that are fortunate to have that support, but most black families make you choose your sexuality at childhood. They don't give you the chance to let you grow up into adulthood to see who you want to be. They give you an ultimatum as a child. Either you or, you know, if you're going to be gay, you're not going to live in this house. And that's as a child. And so I think that it cuts off the nurturing process and preparing that individual for the world like parents are supposed to do, you know? And that we will not have acceptance until parents in our community start accepting their own children and family members.
I think
It starts home.
I think something that was important that, I think Mark Lamont Hill said it, but like isms and phobias can't exist where contact does. And so some of the most racist people are people that don't have black people in proximity, because the moment that I'm in your face every day and I'm at your job every day, you have to like confront that ism, and you have to really like deal with that. And so I think that's why it's easy to exile. Because as long as you exile, you don't have to deal with it. But as long as I'm in the house every day, you're going to have to come to grips with your assumptions about who gay people are. Like, you've got to deal with that. If you're going to, like, if you're seeing it every day, it's like, now it's like, ooh, maybe everything I thought about that was completely different. Like, but, you know, most people are at the point where they're like, nah, because they don't want to deal with it. And I think, like you said, once we stop that and we allow that contact, I think we might move forward.
Another thing she said about children choosing their gayness at a young age. I was called gay before I would even figure out what gay was. And so I feel like it was always something that I ran from. Before I could figure out who I am, what I wanted to be in this world, I was running from gayness because I was called gay in a negative way, so it was something I didn't want to be. And so I think that's unfair to us and unfair to people to put a label on someone when they don't know who they are, they don't know who they want to be yet. Just let a child be a child and grow up to be who they want to be.
Most definitely.
I think kids, they'll make you choose your gender expression identity and your sexual orientation, but then get mad when you're older and be like, well, you're black before anything. I'm like, well, you made me choose. Like, you made me choose. I didn't want to choose. You know, I got into a discussion with a good girlfriend of mine, and she was like, well, I feel like, you know, people see you as trans before anything. Or, you know, I said, I don't see anything. I don't feel. That's everybody's perception. Whoever sees me or sees a part of my identity, that's on them. That has nothing to do with me. And I think that the thing about the black community is they make you choose your sexual orientation until they need you to be black, until they need those numbers, until they need that crowd. Then they like, oh no, you're black before anything. And you know, they try to remind you that you're black, but then it's like, well, you put me out when I was 10. So which is it? Like, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So, when I was a little boy, way back when, everybody's not 20. I was like, oh Lord. Unfortunately, everybody's not 20. But when I was a little boy, way back when, I used to wish that I had blonde hair and blue eyes. Because blonde hair and blue eyes was appealing. Not only was it appealing, with blonde hair and blue eyes, you didn't have to explain anything to anybody, right? You can walk into any room with blonde hair and blue eyes, and you will be just fine and okay, right? That was my perception. So my question to you guys, was there a time that you wished that you were another racial group, or maybe if you were heterosexual? And if so, why? And what would that look like for you?
Well, I can't say I wish I was heterosexual, because like, I already get betrayed anyway, and that gets annoying. So with that being said, I think for me, another race, I mean, I wouldn't think I was another race, but I do wish that my race was more open-minded than like most races.
Mm-hmm.
And because, you know, because you see most gay black men, they always go into the other racial, like, far as white, Asian, whatever, they always relate to those people first, before they relate to their own. And that's just because, like, we just so judgmental, you know, we so, oh, well, you supposed to be this, and you supposed to be that. We're not making each other feel comfortable, versus like in other race homes, whether they're Caucasian or Asian. Caucasian, they're gonna embrace their people. Like, if they see that little Johnny is not going well towards football and he wants to be ripped the runway, they're gonna go get his sewing machines, his fashion. They're gonna put him in the schools for that. They're gonna make sure he's gonna excel in it versus us. You know, they see us and they see us drifting this way. They wanna whoop us and beat us, and that ain't what boys supposed to do. And we supposed to, you know, stuff like that. So I think I don't want to be another race, but I do get, you know, it does get a little kind of jealous heart to see that another race can love each other and be so open and we can't.
Right, I can empathize with you on that.
I guess I'm push back a little bit on that. Cause I see some white people that do some, you know, mess up things with their children. But to answer the first question,
Hey, watch it up in plain sight.
right. To answer the first question, what they say? I've never had that feeling, experienced that feeling, never wanted to be any other race. Just because, you know, I feel like everybody has their own thing. Like, you know, every race has their own issues that they got to deal with. I mean, that's just the nature of life. We're all trying to figure something out. We're trying to figure out what life means. What does it mean to be? And, you know, whatever community you fall a part of, you're engaged in that interrogation of what life means. And so, but I guess there was probably some times where, you know, I wished I was straight, you know, because I felt like, you know, it would have just been easier, you know. I wouldn't have to do the explanation. I wouldn't have to, you know, figure out who I am. You know, I just be like, you know, because it's the norm, right? It's you know, we live in a very heteronormative world, and so to be straight is just to, yeah, you're gonna have issues, right? But the issues ain't gonna be dealing with your sexuality, you know. And so, but you know, I've grown out of that, grown all the way out of that, because I think being queer is amazing, and you know, it really is a part of who I am, and it goes to what Joel was saying. You know, like I tell people all the time, I am who I am equally and at the same damn time. So I'm black, I'm man, I'm queer, equally and at the same time.
I feel like for me, I've never wanted to be another race, but sometimes I get frustrated because being a black trans woman, I mean, we already know how hard we have to work. I already have to work twice as hard being black. Then, you know, being a black woman. Now I'm black trans and a woman, and then I look and see my other trans sisters, they don't have to deal with issues of, you know, maybe not as much of their community clocking them or policing them, or, you know, they live freely and don't even have to put up the fight for their community. Because it don't matter, because they're white, they're this, they're that. I'm being from LA, being black is a strange thing, because in LA, you're taught that being white is in, being Latin. If you're gonna be a person of color, you need to be Latin. So if you're gonna be trans, you need to be a Latin girl, because that's what's desirable. So, you know, to be in LA and to be unapologetically black and pro-black and not wanting to compromise, it was difficult. Like, to be, you know, I'll never forget, I was out at a bar, and it was a trans bar for Martin Luther King Day, and a black guy walked up and talked to a trans, you know, a Latin trans woman, and it was annoying, but what upset me was he threw it in my face. He said, oh, you want me to be with you, but I'm with her. Like, that's what, you know, this is what I want. Like, and I was like, you know, that's really fucking annoying. Like, that's, you know, and having to deal with that constantly, having to, you know, have men and people, you know, police my identity and say, you know, we want white women, we want trans women, especially when you're dating, like, they want white, they want Latin, because, oh, they look more this, oh, they look more that, you know. You know, I've never wanted to be another race, but, you know, sometimes when I'm on the battlefield and I'm fighting the good fight, I'm like, you know what, and, you know, not to call my sisters bitches, but I'm like, damn, these bitches got it easy, like, you know, and then, you know, not only does their community at least embrace them a little bit more, their men embrace them a little bit more. Hell, my men embrace them a little bit more. So, you know, it's frustrating, like, it's really frustrating, especially, you know, to know that the standard of beauty is a white woman already, and the standard of every, you know, womanhood is a white woman. So to know that I'm black and I'm trans and I'm, you know, fighting the fight, and a lot of the people are like, well, you would be snatched if you're this, or you would be doing this if you're that. It's frustrating, it is, I'm not even gonna lie.
My experience is, I think one of my great grandmothers and my father like always knew I was like gay, and so one thing they used to always whisper was like, you're so different. That's good. I like that you're different. And so I've always been told like being different was okay, and so I've always wanted to be black, and I've always wanted to be like, being different and being an individual was very important to me. Being gay was something I struggled with, but I don't think I've ever wanted to be straight. It was just something like, am I gay or am I straight? Like, I didn't know which one I was. I didn't know which one I wanted to be, but I never want to be one of them.
So my next question is, do you believe the black family biggest fear is raising a gay child?
That's one of the top. Yeah, that's one of the top. I can have a brother that's like selling drugs. They not that scared. Like, that's okay. That's not as bad as that. Like, you can shoot somebody. You can fight. Yeah, my brother was a fighter. Like, he was bad. He fought everybody. I've never had to fight because he was a fighter. But that wasn't. I don't think that's worse than their fear of like being gay. And so that's why they never like had the conversation with me about being gay, because they scared of that. But they would praise my brother on knocking somebody out.
One of my questions is so you guys see. Oftentimes we say that there is no gay agenda. But in my experience, we all should have some type of agenda, right? So what is your gay agenda, your queer agenda, your trans agenda? What's your agenda?
One thing I do all the time, at least I try to do, is like, I don't like to shake a man's hand. You know, like, I'll go in for a hug. Just to be like, here, like, I'm breaking down fragile masculinity. Not to say that you're gay, not to say you're queer, not to say anything, but just to say, like, this is my agenda. Like, my agenda, and I always say, breaking down fragile masculinity one hug at a time. And like, I do, especially on the debate team, people get upset all the time. Like, they'll come in and they'll be like, hey, all the women, hey, oh, what's up, bro? No, come on. Like, you know, like, we're gonna keep the same energy, you know, because that's just how I feel, you know. And so I try to be intentional about that, like, a lot, because I think that a lot of people just don't even know that they're doing it. And, you know, in some of the conversations that I've had out of it, they're like, well, why I gotta hug you? I said, well, why'd you have to hug her? Like, what's the difference? Well, I'm just saying, you my bro, so I'm just, okay, and that's your sis, okay? Like, where did the hug come in? Like, where did it become different? And I was like, well, it's not fragile masculinity, I just want to say that all the time. I was like, well, you explain to me what it is. What was the difference? And, you know, I think that it started to make a lot of men, like, dissect, you know, their own insecurities, their own assumptions about what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine. And, you know, it's small, but I think it's a start.
Agreed.
I have a few different agendas. Some is about like doing everything with love and peace. Sometimes you feel like you have to be like this tough person and be mean to people or be a bitch to get your job done. I feel like it's a way that you can do. You can be as nice as you can and be caring. You can go that route. You don't always have to go the route of being a bitch. Another agenda I have is have the conversations that need to be had. And so if someone says something that doesn't sit right with you, be able to say something about that and say, that's inappropriate. You shouldn't say things like that because this, that, and the other. And so just to be able to have any conversation that comes your way.
I think my agenda is to be visible and to live unapologetically, and to be a bad bitch. 'Cause, they don't, you know, the world teaches you that, you know, the world is like, being trans and being black, you're not supposed to be a bad bitch. You're supposed to be a hoe in the street. You're supposed to take whatever any man or anybody give you, you know. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to push into whatever spaces I want. You know, that's what drove me to get my degree. That's what drives me into corporate boardrooms, you know, sitting in a room with people that are mostly white men or who don't look like me. And I have long nails, I'm trans, you know, I have tattoos. And sitting there and standing in my truth and really standing firm and tall, that's what my agenda is. It's, you know, walking the streets of Houston on a normal day. Like, I know 90% of girls are afraid to leave their house being trans. And I'm like, well, what the fuck you do? Just go to work and go home? I don't know what you're supposed to do. That's not how you're supposed to live. Like, I'm going to pooch in my youth. I'm going to be in these streets. I'm going to let them know that, oh, no, I'm here. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to let the men know. I'm going to let your men know, oh, I'm here. So, you know, I think that's really my agenda. And also to really let the next girl know that you don't have to live how the girls, you know, in my generation and in previous generations live. Like, you don't have to. You know, yeah, it might be dangerous as fuck. It might not be safe. It might be scary. But you only have one life, and you can live it however you want. And you can break down any barrier that you want. So.
Okay, do you guys think that we will ever find a balance of being black and LGBT, or do there needs to be a balance?
Will we ever find a balance? That's just like saying if the years ago it was got to be. I mean, that's just hard, you know? But can we be respected, or can we work on our respect? Yeah. We can work on being more respected and being treated equally, but it's just as far as just accepted, I don't think it's gonna ever be accepted. It's gonna always be a problem somewhere.
as a revolutionary, I feel like, I'm always trying to be hopeful, right? That's the job of revolution. Like, you gotta believe that another world is possible in order to get out there in the streets and protest, because it can get hard to do it if you don't see anything changing. And so I'm hopeful that we can, because the thing that I am coming to understand is that our lives are intersectional, right? And so much as Black people want freedom, it won't come unless queer people get freedom, right? It won't come unless disabled people get freedom. Like, it's all connected. So like, it's never gonna come. So if Black people just want freedom, but they don't want to include queer people, then they're gonna never get that freedom, because it's too intersectional. And so I'm hopeful that because we all want some type of freedom, right? We don't all agree on how we get there or what it looks like or what that freedom actually is, but because we're all trying to get to that freedom, I think eventually, we'll work to a point that we'll see some change, because when you look just at the history of social movements, you can see how closely related, feminist movements or womanist movements are with civil rights, right? Like, civil rights is 60s, Black Power is 70s, Stonewall riots is 69. Like, it's all right there together, because it has to happen together. And if, and that's the only way that it happens, because of the ways in which oppression overlaps and intersects.
And I have to second that, because I believe we're more alike than we are different. And I believe that we have to keep fighting the fight a good fight, and keep putting our best foot forward at doing what's right for people that look like us, and even for people that don't look like us.
I agree. If we look at history has shown us that maybe not in this civilization or in this, in these past generations, but history shows us they've had cross-dressers, they've had two-spirits, there have been so many things in history. I think it seems foreign to us because in our recent history, it's been so conservative, it's been so restrictive, identity has been so policed. But I do think that history shows us, yeah, it can happen. It's just we're going through this cycle right now where it seems like it's not a possibility. But I think that once the reset button is pushed, I definitely think it's a possibility.
Okay, so in the last recent years, we've been seeing more examples of queer Black people becoming more and more mainstream on like TV and things like that. Why do you guys think it took so long for us to get to this point?
People were scared. I just think they were scared to touch that topic. Because like you say, we come from a world where it was a taboo. So, to tap into that, that's a risk. And it was a risk that was beneficial at the end, but it was a risk, and I think that was probably like one of the reasons. But like even back then, people did all type of, even though like 212. So, it was there, but it was there for comedy. It wasn't there because this is who they are. So, to have it to where RuPaul got one of the biggest TV shows, that's a risk. That was a risk, and I think it's good. I think it was good. I feel it was good because I feel like it inspired a lot of people who felt like we would never make mainstream.
I don't know. I'm so back and forth about it because I'm like, while it's okay, I don't even think it's good that RuPaul. Yeah, it's cool for the community, whatever. But RuPaul is when you look at the bigger scheme, drag show is problematic because all it shows is a certain type of subset of the community, and that's all that people think that there is. So now, because Drag Race is big, now I'm in Target and some old lady is like, oh, you should do Drag Race. And I don't want to say, and I don't want to curse this old lady out and say, bitch, I'm not a drag queen. But it's a double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword. I feel like, while it is good that we're getting more images. It's like, I still don't see an image that's even remotely close to me, because it's like, we're everyday life. What they still are doing is, yeah, we're gonna give you some queer images, but y'all all just gonna be in a queer show or on a queer channel. We're not gonna intersect you all into Friends, or we're not gonna put you on, you know, an NBC show that's not a comedy
So
about.
let me ask you this, Julia. How do you feel about Amaya Scott being on Star?
I loved it. I did. I loved it. I actually think that Amaya Scott doesn't get enough credit. The funny thing is there is a non-black trans woman who's doing very similar things to Amaya that Amaya Scott's been doing years ago, and she's getting way more praise. I mean, I think that Amaya Scott on Star is legendary. I think it's great. She's groundbreaking only because of where she comes from and the fact that Star is on Fox. It's not a gay show. It's, you know, it's a show, and she's just a person on the show. And I just wish that more shows were like that. You know, while I love the poses and I love the drag races for what, you know, yeah, it's extending this viewpoint of the community, it's also, we're regular people. Like, why can't we just be on a regular show? You know, so I think it's good and bad.
I think it took so long because we're still a new community. Everyone, well, it was drilled into people for this American dream for so long, and now people are figuring out, that's not what I really want. That's not what I'm comfortable with. I want to be who I am and do what makes me feel comfortable instead of trying to live this American dream. And so now, since we're comfortable with who we are and we're becoming more aware of who we are and who we want to be in this world, we're able to create in that space as well. And so that's how you get the poses, because it's people that want to create and people that want to see that.
Okay, do we have any more questions from the audience? I'm going to this young lady right here. I'm going to go here and here.
I do want to say something about like the TV show. Oh, okay, I stand up. I have a low voice, but I do want to say something about the TV show because I love RuPaul Drag Race.
Girl, me too.
My mom started watching it, and she's Nigerian, so that was kind of, she enjoyed it, and then she started watching Pose with me, and I feel like after watching that, she kind of like changed it, not completely changed her viewpoint, but she doesn't make as much like ignorant comments, or she's a little bit more mindful that, you know, trans people are normal people too. Like, you know what I mean? I do feel like it educates a little bit, even if.
Education is based on how you find it and perceive it, right? We can find education anywhere and within anybody. It's based on how you interpret that and how you perceive it.
And I think that also speaks to what he said about when you're around people, then you're able to be more comfortable in it because it's in your face. And so now you're able to see that, like, oh, this is a normal person. And it's like, she's more comfortable with it.
Actually, I have two questions, if I may.
Sure.
One, how do y'all feel, how do you deal with the current political climate? I'm sometimes afraid. I want to know how, I don't talk to people that much, and I want to know how other human beings feel right now in 2019 in USA. How do you deal with it? Secondly, have you had any interactions with the Pan-Africanist community? And what has that been like for you as a, not fitting into the mold?
So I would say for me, I've had experience from like with the Pan-African community, but most of those people that I have experience with, they are queer people. And so in that, I wouldn't say there's an issue or any kind of malice or a negative experience, because I feel like you can find any type of person you want to find within the community if you look hard enough, right? And sometimes you don't really have to look that far, you don't really have to look that hard. The person might be sitting right next to you, right? And so for me, I encounter those people. They even make oils for my hair, and they smell really good. But you know, it's I guess it's one of those things. It's based on where you go, who you find, right? So I've had experience with those people. I think it's positive, lovely, and all those things. I don't have a negative thing to say.
As far as politics, I stay aware of everything that's going on. I try to watch the news. I keep up on Twitter, and I listen to people that talk about politics just to be just to know what's going on. But outside of that, I try to stay away from speaking about it. I try to stay away from endorsing people or supporting politics, because it's hard to support this country when you figure out what it's based on and stuff like that. And so I try to stay away from politics because it's kind of tricky.
I know for me, the first time I was like, oh, maybe I'm in trouble coming to the South is, LA is a completely different world. I really think that LA should be its own, like California should just be its own country at this point. But coming to Houston, the first time I was like, I'm in trouble is I went to the bathroom and I did whatever I usually do. I go to the woman's bathroom and there was a police officer, there was a rent-a-cop there. And she looked, she stopped, I stopped, she looked at me, I looked at her, and my first instinct was to get bucked, what, are you gonna say, and it didn't dawn on me that this is Texas. I'm a little ways away from, Kansas, Dorothy. So it made me nervous, and that was the first time I've ever been nervous doing something that I do all the time, that's something that's human. So the political climate, it makes me nervous, but it also, people, when things were more restrictive, we did what we had to do, and I was like, I'm gonna do what I have to do, whether it's the legal way, the right way, under somebody's nose, or, it's still gonna happen, but it does make me a little nervous, especially because with rights getting stripped left and right, you really see who has your back, who doesn't. So, I don't know.
I guess I would say, me, I'm a little more, I guess, just not necessarily apathetic, but just we still got chains that need to be broken, right? We still got chains that need to get off. We had them when we got here. We have them today. Donald Trump in 2019, 18, 16 didn't necessarily make that any more of a reality than it already was. Maybe we became more aware of it. Some may have become more aware of it, and so for me, it's it's a struggle, right? I'm a part of a legacy of struggle, right? That has started since 1619 when the first of us got here, right? And so I'm apathetic is the wrong word, but it's just it's America, right? What is it when you can't deal with clowns and not expect the circus or something like that. It's America. There you go. And so exactly.
That's why they say always surround yourself with positive people. You know what I mean? Because you already hang with it.
And I think it's just
always bring you down all the time.
I just think it's indicative of what America has been, right? What America was founded on, what America started as. This ain't no new or no worse off than Christopher Columbus so-called discovering and raping and killing an entire, right? an entire land of people. This is not anything that's any worse or just absurd. It's something that's consistent and on brand with who America has been and is, quite frankly. And then in terms of Pan-Africanism, I think like you said, some of my friends are a lot of my friends, most of them that are Pan-African, are also queer, and so maybe in the larger scheme of Pan-Africanists, there are some issues with, but at the same time, it's like them are the folks that got it wrong, right? Because when you understand what Pan-Africanism is, right, you have to understand that it is inclusive of people of all identities, and when you understand African history and you look at African mythology, you just look at gods, you look at how African people were how set up, how African families are structured, You look at the Dodi people, like there's so many, facets of Africanness that has always been so inclusive of queer people. And so, any person that is going to so-called be a Pan-Africanist has to come to grips that African don't just look one type of way.
I should have specified straight Pan-Africans, because I've often heard that you did not find same-gender loving people in Africa.
Right, and
It's a Western disease, blah, 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 blah.
And those are people that can't even, to me, I gotta pull your Pan-African card, because it's like, do you not know African history? And I can only go so far with that conversation, because it's like, this is just basic, right? This is basic African history. Like, the queer people didn't just show up, right, in America. Like, we've been here, we've always been here. And so, I think it's like America, right? Like, if you take 12 years of American education, you might have a certain worldview about something, when you get out of it. So if all you're looking at is Pan-African readings and theory that supports heteronormativity, homophobia, transphobia, then of course that's the worldview that you're going to come out of. But that's not what Pan-Africanism is, and you're no more of a Pan-Africanist than me being a white man.
For me, I would say, my TV in my home stay on CNN. But with that said, I pay attention, but at the same time, I really don't. Because I understand, for me, I'll say this, political justice is a equality fight where I want equity. And there's a big difference in equity and equality, right? Because for too long, Black people have been fighting to be equal. And we have still not got reparations or met the means to our next counterpart, right? Whether you are in a heterosexual community, the white community is light years ahead of the Black community. If you are in the queer community, the white community is light years ahead of the African American community. So for me, political justice is a fight for equality, and I don't want equality. I want equity at this point, because equity is the only thing that will make it right, or will allow all of us to be on the same playing field. Because what I need might not be the things that you need. I may have a job, I may have a house, I may have a food, and you might only have a job. You still need a house and food. So no, equality will not help you. You need equity.
Wasn't it somebody?
It was him, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah, I was about to say, wasn't it somebody?
I just wanted to say, glad to see brothers here, young brothers. My question is actually pertaining to relationships and love now. I watch Pose, and one thing about that show was it took place in an era where HIV and AIDS was prevalent, and having been so young, you didn't grow up. I'm old enough to remember being in 7th grade, and they showed us slides of people, wheeling away, tongue all white and stuff like that, and different images like this is what will happen if you get AIDS, and it's a death sentence, and you can't get from it. Now, you were born in an era where it was kind of like the advances in medicine were already kind of, ahead, so that stigma wasn't as strong as it was. Do you think that has helped you in your personal relationships? And that goes for everybody up there. Also for the trans lady.
Her name is Joelle.
Joelle. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I got here late.
I just love the correction.
So as a Black man, I identify, well, mainly as straight, but as trans-amorous. So I kind of find myself straddling between, the straight world and the gay world, because I don't identify gay, but I love trans women who weren't born genetically female. So the straight people say, oh, you're not straight anymore. So how do you deal with that, and what is something that a person who may be dealing with you, whether they, are new or if they've been kind of dating, what can they do to make you feel comfortable and make sure that your needs are being met within the confines of that friendship, relationship, whatever it may be? So it's kind of a two-part question.
So the first question is, how do we navigate relationships within the LGBT community while being aware of HIV/AIDS?
Well, since there's medical advances that have killed a lot of the stigma, because I know back then, you know, that was one of the biggest things. That was one of the biggest reasons it was why people would look at you different. If you say I'm gay, then that means you're putting yourself at a higher risk for, you know, contracting HIV/AIDS. But now, you know, these younger brothers grew up in an era, you know, where maybe there was more medical advances. So is that something that you still deal with, or is it kind of almost dead because now we have PrEP and everything that, you know, HIV is pretty much all but cured?
So, I got you. So, I got you. So, particularly me and him have both received the grant within the last 4 months to fight HIV stigma, particularly in the South. So let me be very clear with this, right? HIV stigma is still very much so a thing in the South. Aside from that, HIV/AIDS rates are still climbing in the South, particularly in the African American community, as it relates to MSMs. And if you don't know what MSM is a man who have sex with men because they don't consider themselves to be gay, right? Amongst with gay men who are identified as gay, as well as black women, right? So there are still new HIV/AIDS cases being diagnosed at alarming rates within the South. So even with PrEP being a thing, just because PrEP is a thing, a lot of people are not pitching PrEP. A lot of people do not effectively educate people on how to take PrEP or what PrEP does, or even have knowledge of what PrEP is, right? So my sister is a nurse. My sister went to her primary care physician and asked for PrEP, and her primary care physician didn't even know what PrEP was. So it's not that it is when it comes to HIV/AIDS or stigma with HIV/AIDS, that it is solely a LGBT thing. It is more so that prescription companies and pharmaceutical companies and the CDC particularly target African American, Latinx communities who are within the LGBT, well, who are in the who gay, because right, they don't really target lesbians, and trans people data is lumped into MSM data, right? So that's one of the reasons why we can't break stigma barriers or get to a place where we have decreasing numbers in HIV/AIDS, because one, the people who take the data do not take the data appropriately. It's not inclusive, it is not diverse. So that's really where the issue starts.
There are some changes in healthcare, and there are several research studies that are open specifically for trans women. And
Is that only here in
trying to
Houston?
get-
Or is that only here in Houston?
No, that's other cities as well. And the study that is coming up it'll be at least 5 sites in the country. But the thing is, healthcare does not really have the information on trans people. So that's why they're opening these studies, because they are now trying to obtain the information to know how to advance healthcare and medicine for us.
Well, I would tell you that they do have the information, because I particularly spoke to someone at the CDC in a conference who had outdated data that was 10 years ago, and I sent the slideshow to her. Did not send you the slide. So it's that, and I still have the slide on my phone, so I'll show it to you after the meeting. So it's not that they do not get the data, they do not log the data appropriately, and they do not keep the data up to date. You cannot come to a conference in 2017 and show me where you took data from trans people in 2006 and tell me that it's legitimate data. Any data outside of 2 to 4 years is not accurate.
Right.
So you pulling up some data that's 11 years old and telling me this is the data that we're going to use for trans people. No, nobody can, if the CDC is missing the mark on properly measuring, cataloging, and keeping track with the data of trans people, I really don't see anyone who's doing it right. Ms. Jolie?
What I would say, I'm a little different. I feel like the thing about, I'll only speak to being a trans woman within the trans community, is you'll see that there's a lot of, it's a very individual journey. I can't speak for what works for the next girl. Trans woman, trans identity, I can't speak to them. I'm a little bit different because dealing with I guess I try to meet whoever I'm dealing with where they're at. Because I know, and something that I've come to learn is that not only is it a journey for me as a trans woman, it's a journey for the person that is involved with me or trying to love me. And that's something it took me a long time to get to and a long time to accept. It's a journey for them. They may not be in the same place that I'm in. A lot of my relationships have been ruined because of timing. Because I'm here, they're here, we're just not in the same place. And it's a hard thing to accept, and it's hard. I can't say, and I can't tell a person who's dealing with me, I can't tell them how to be. All I can do is kind of accept where they are, and if we can grow together or grow in the same direction, we can. If we can't, we can't, because it's such a complex, complicated journey that it's impossible for me to really to say. I can speak to how I've, my interactions in the past with men, and it's usually I see where they're at. If wherever they're at is manageable, is within the, realm where I'm at, I'll try to work with them. A lot of men, I have to accept that they're just not there, and they're not coachable, and they're not willing to learn. And that's something that, I just have to learn to drop them and keep moving. I will just say that every girl is different. Every girl is different. I'm not going to be like, her. I'm just not going to be like them. So if a man is serious, he will see that every trans woman is different. And what makes her, and every woman is different, and what makes dealing with her and moving forward with her, it may not work for the next girl. So it really takes being open to learning that woman. And first off, accepting her identity and accepting how she identifies and not trying to fit her into whatever box you might have. And also knowing that as a trans woman, her journey is complex, it's complicated, it's flowing, it's not black and white, it's very gray, and it's a spectrum, and it's moving. And I think that in my experience, a lot of men that I have dealt with, they have been very rigid in what they want. And they don't realize that there is some beauty and there is something very magical about it when you're free and you're open and you're trying to let something grow and develop. Like, you can't let a plant grow under some concrete and expect it to grow and flourish into this wonderful thing. I guess I can't really answer the question because it's a very individual.
From your perspective, that's all I'm asking. You can't speak for nobody else but yourself. So from your perspective, that's all I can ask for, and you answered it. So
okay, what's good for the goose baby ain't good for the gander. Okay.
As for HIV and AIDS and dating, I believe that the stigma is still there. The education has come a long way, but that stigma is still there, and a lot of people isn't educating themselves up on that. And I think we have to do that education. Like, I educated myself on a lot of things about HIV and AIDS because I am a gay man and a queer man. So I feel like I had to do that work. That work didn't come to me. I didn't learn that in school and stuff like that. I didn't learn that on Instagram because a lot of people are not willing to teach each other information like that. But so we have to educate ourselves, straight people as well, because I've had an aunt come to me talking about some stuff that just wasn't true, and it was like, I had to tell an adult that still looks at me as a child that what you're saying is just outdated information.
Yeah, I also agree. The stigma is still there. I think that there's a lot of education that needs to be had, and there's just a lot of like we just have to call people in when they they say certain things and check it at the point that they say it. I do it a lot with some of my straight friends as well. Like, I'm like, that's what y'all do? Like, that's what you're really going into the bedroom thinking? Like, it's completely false. It's completely, just unscientific. Like, it's just, and, I think it's important that we have, more intentional conversations about HIV, AIDS, and what it really is. For a lot of people, how it's contracted, some people still walk around thinking, you know,
Okay, you
real
get old
OJ,
school.
right, like, you know, drink out your straw, like, it's really, so the stigma in that sense is really still there. To the second point, I don't know, the second question. I don't know, because I was kind of a little.
We're gonna hear more.
Okay.
We're gonna hear more.
Okay.
So we got about 7 more minutes left. So I do wanna go ahead and get your question and
Well, first, I just want to say, I'm like, okay, so I'm the fish friend, y'all, so I don't know if y'all noticed that. I'm the fish friend. So that's why I'm over here like, okay, girl, I'm listening. So first, I want to say, I'm really blown away from each and one of y'all, especially you. Like, I'm like, I'm really proud that you really are not letting, you know, your preference take away from your talent. And that's really awesome. I really like all y'all. I'm just over here like, really just like dazzled. Second, I want to say I'm Pan-African, so I'm like, okay, y'all gonna say something? And I'm like, okay. I really appreciate y'all not downing us, because being a Pan-African person, being raised, my name is African, all of that, and you know, we was, you know, having lots, being that natural girl back in the day, you know. That was talked down on. It was. And now, you know, being open as a Black person, being that person, I'm actually really happy to hear that y'all are really accepting us. Because back in the day, that was mostly like, you know, we're a cult type of thing. But my question is, it's more so for you, Ms. Joel. I know I know as of last year, more so sports, we were talking about how, you know, all of us as one person, we all is national. So I wanted to know, how do y'all feel about like the MMA fighter, the transgender, she cracked a woman's skull, right? And or like another person, I forgot her name, she's transgender, but everybody felt some type of way of her actually running track with the other girls. And I really haven't heard nobody, you know, their point on it, just, you know, the straight people. And, you know, I personally don't like the answers, but I'm not hearing from nobody else, and I'm like, okay, well, why they're not standing up? Or how do y'all naturally feel about, you know, a transgender being with the woman, like in the women's sports, and they feeling the way how they feel, and you know, they feel like it's not fair because, you know, naturally, you know how men are naturally stronger than us. So how do you naturally feel about that in the backlash?
I want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Transgender is not proper. Yeah. Is not transgender is not the proper tense. It's like saying gay or bi or lesbian.
I apologize for that, but I'm just saying off of what I've seen, because this was a topic in one of my Facebook groups a couple of days ago, and they were just going fed, and I'm just like, you guys, that's not really, you know what I'm saying? That's not really cool, because like I said, we're all the same person, and I just feel like that's not cool. And like I said, I just haven't heard anybody just like, oh, tackle it. And I'm just like, that's not, I just wanted to know y'all's opinions about it.
So I'll actually say this. The example I'm going to bring up is Serena Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Her playing tennis. Mm-hmm. She was so good that they immediately thought she was on drugs.
Right.
So they tested her before every match because she couldn't possibly be that good. And so many people commented about her agility, you know, it was an attack on her being a Black woman and her, you know, her physique. And all I'm going to say is all this argument goes back to is, do we consider trans women women?
Right.
If we consider them women, then those few cases have nothing to do, because accidents happen or whatever happens within sports all the time.
Right.
And we're not calling it out, we're not saying anything, it just so happens that these instances are being blown up. But it's like, I think it just goes back to the argument of trans women are women. These things, they happen across the board. Are we talking about another MMA fighter that busts another woman upside the head? We're not talking about that. We're talking about this woman who happens to, you know, be trans doing. And I don't have anything to say. It happened. Like, what, you know, it's another news topic, you know. I think that it's being blown out because of the identity piece, but I don't really, it happens in every sport, because with sports, being a physical thing. It's, it's down to physical, yeah.
Right.
So I don't really have an opinion about it. I heard the stories
I
and
think it's more so the backlash.
I
You
would
know what I'm
say,
saying?
I would particularly say it comes down to a thing of really knowing about people of trans experience, knowing about HRTs and testosterone, because if you know about HRTs, which are hormones, you know that if I inject as a male, if I inject estrogen in my body, then all of my muscle mass did turn into fat, right? And if I was cis female and I inject testosterone into my body, then I will build more muscle mass.
Right.
So I believe it becomes an educational piece that oftentimes that we leave out, right? I think oftentimes, particularly as Black people, we're quick to jump to a particular conversation without research, right? And we expect people to educate us on that, on our opinions or on our assumptions, because we didn't do the work ourselves. And to be quite honest, I had an argument with somebody last week about that. And thank you, because now I'm gonna remind you, because I'll make to see if they really Google to really find research about HRTs, because that was the whole argument. They felt that it wasn't appropriate for a woman of trans experience to be in this match, right? But at the same time, but if we know about testosterone, we know about estrogen, we know how it works, then that's not even an argument. Because if I start taking estrogen, I no longer have the strength that a cisgender male has, because I have more estrogen in my body.
Right, exactly. I just wanted to know, because like I said, I just haven't heard nobody talk about it.
Well,
And I was just like,
you know what else nobody is talking about?
Follow me. You need to talk about it.
I think that nobody else is talking about trans men in sports. I don't hear a word about that.
Right.
So it's like, no, people talk about trans women because it's sexy. It's, oh, I got something to say about, fill in the blank.
Trans men can live more stealth.
Yeah.
I think it's the ability to live stealth. But I do want to say we're going to have to elbow this. We can always have more discussions about this with you guys. If you could all do me a favor, if you have Instagram, if you have Facebook, follow us on Instagram at The Mahogany Project Incorporated. You'll see a pretty little flower in the little photo bubble. That's how you'll know you have the right Mahogany Project, because there are two. I'm the one that's incorporated. But follow us on Facebook and on Instagram at The Mahogany Project Incorporated. You can stay up to date on all of our events, our fundraisers, our community connections, other things that go on in the community as well, because we just don't post about our events and stuff that's important to us. We post about what goes on in the community as well. Yes,
I mean, it's just, great. This was, so great to me or whatever. I was, introduced, with my friend today, she brought me today. And just the inspirational words that y'all said, it was, just beautiful. I think a lot of girls who I have ran across, and I ain't better than nobody, but a lot of girls are so lost. And I want to, really, get a lot of them to come here and actually, listen to, a good little story, or even, be opening up to tell their testimony. So everybody have a testimony, and I think it was very beautiful. People need to hear this, because you say, a lot of people are lost out there, especially a lot of Black trans women, and I've been around a whole lot of them to where they get on drugs and everything from not knowing, which way to turn. And it is a solution. Don't never let nobody deem you so low, because you trans. It's colleges for us. You know what I mean? And you can work and you can get an education. And a lot of people don't know that. They look at it oh, ain't no way out for me, because I'm trans. But this is 2020. We are exposed. It's everywhere. I mean, we're on TV. You know what I'm saying? We on movies. I mean, we're on sitcoms. I mean, it's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So it's really no excuse at all. But I mean, y'all was amazing tonight. And I will make sure whenever y'all have something else going on, I will bring a few girls that need to hear some inspirational words. And yeah, this was great.
Thank you.
I love it.
Supporting our event, please follow us on social media. Please support our fundraiser, and we would love to see you guys at our next event, okay? Thank you guys so much. Safe travels on the way home.